I'm John Bond. Welcome to Move Yourself Happy. Made for fitness enthusiasts who want to make their passion their profession. Are you unhappy in your present job? Are you passionate about health and fitness? Do you want to release your true potential? If the answer is yes, this podcast is for you. I will be teaching you the specific knowledge that every trainer and coach needs to be successful. So listen closely as I share my expertise with you. So just like me, you can love what you do. Welcome back. In today's episode, I am talking with Paul Comer, who is one of our graduates at Storm Fitness Academy, qualified as a personal trainer with us 2 years ago now, and since then has been working as a personal trainer for a range of different clients, where he specialises in using strength training and bodybuilding techniques to improve musculoskeletal health in his clients. Now, Paul is a big advocate of natural bodybuilding and has actually competed himself, and in his first competition managed to come first and second in 2 different divisions. So he's a good one to follow, good one to listen to. When you join us, you will be joining us just as we start talking about a couple of books that inspired Paul to become a natural bodybuilder. So Paul, you mentioned that there's a book that kind of inspired you for your own training. What was that book that you mentioned?
Okay, so the book is called Brawn, and it's by a guy who lives in Cyprus at the moment, called Stuart McRobert, and he has written quite a lot of books over the years. The Brawn, I believe, was his first one, written in 1991. And he did like a regular publication as well called Hard Gainer. And it's all geared towards the natural trainee. What I mean by that is a trainee who doesn't use any steroids or growth hormones or anything like that. Someone who an average person who just wants to get the best out of themselves, to maximize their potential naturally. And it's about incorporating that training. It's like a training philosophy basically into your everyday life, your life with family and the stresses of work, and the fact that you can, but you have to sacrifice a lot, train, or you don't have to train 5 times a week in the gym to get exceptional results. And actually is written for quite a lot of the main sort of bodybuilding publications, suggesting another way to train.
I love it.
A way that is abbreviated, a way that is more in line with your body, and the training is only one part of your success, I believe, with building muscle and strength. Another big part of it is the recuperation. And what a lot of people, I don't think, realise is not only does that impact your nervous system, and it's a stressor. Your work is a stressor. Your home life is a stressor. And all these stresses accumulate. And if you are training every day, with weights, I'll probably just talk about it later on, about obviously aerobic style training. But if you're training with weights and you're really taxing your nervous system, if you do that every day, you sooner or later, unless you are enhanced, you are going to come to a halt, and your progress is going to halt. And his sort of like philosophy is to work with your body, allow your body to rest. Once you've trained, get out of the gym, allow your body to rest, do other activities, and not live in the gym. So it just make it, a very important part of your life, but not the only thing that's in your life. That's the kind of philosophy to it, and it was a different way for me of looking at training, because up until that point, I had done the typical. I started training as a teenager. I was in the gym. You couldn't get me out of the gym. I was in the gym every day. And yeah, you will get results to start with because it's a new stimulus, and you know, I was growing as well. I'm 6'6". Hopefully, I've stopped growing. But I playing rugby as well, and I was feeding my body. But this was pretty much before I started my full time working life, if you like. And then once that happened, and the stresses of relationships and other things, before you know it, that training that 5, 6, 7 days a week, it just wasn't sustainable long term.
Mm. Yeah, and so these old books, by the way, like I find some of them, they're so much better than the modern day books because I think they had less competition back then, so they could just write the facts and
Yeah.
and the stuff that works. And a lot of it is actually quite basic, isn't it? It's not rocket science, is it? It's basic stuff, and it's just about adhering to the basic stuff. But the trouble is, if you're trying to release a book today, people don't want to hear the basic stuff. They need to have a few more sort of bells and whistles on it to sell the book. So there is a good argument to say if you actually want something that's going to get you to the condition you want that works, is get the older books, really, like you've done. So no, it's good.
Yeah, it's like you said, a lot of it is it's quite simple concepts, and things that I suppose are now you're now hearing more mainstream, as in focus on your sleep, focus on your rest. Once you've trained really, really hard, you don't need to spend 5 hours in a gym. You know, focus on the compound moves, and have a life outside the gym as well, and have a deload week, and just things like that. You know, just really simple concepts that I think kind of feel have sort of been lost.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one who sort of kind of touts this, and I've got quite a few. I've got quite an extensive library of books that I've kind of picked up over the years, and there's a few people who have shared this kind of philosophy. One who I mentioned before, Ian Duckett, who's a natural bodybuilder, who was a champion bodybuilder. He's nearly in his 60s now. He still lives that life. Doesn't train any more than 3 times a week. He's written quite a few books. I think one of which I mentioned, but I can show it again if you want.
Yeah, show that again.
That's Short and Sharp 2, it's called. So the guy on the front, that's Ian Duckett. So he's a lifetime natural bodybuilder. He does have, I think, an Instagram and YouTube channel. He actually lives not too far from me. And last year, sorry to go off on a tangent, last year, I kind of decided I'd always wanted to sort of compete in a natural bodybuilding competition. And so I got in touch with him and I said, could you help me? And he did. So he helped me prepare last year for a bodybuilding competition for the Natural Physique Association, it's called. So it's the largest, and they're like lifetime naturals. So as in, I know like there's some associations where you can have been on steroids and then be clean for so many years, but this is a lifetime natural association. So I signed up to there and did my competition last year and came second in my class, and then I came first for best of most overall improvement category.
Blimey, that's great.
So I had like a before and after photo, and that was 17 weeks, of very hard prep and dieting down. And
must have been. I always think it's amazing to be on that stage, like regardless of the positioning. I know this is like a cheesy thing to say, but I 100% believe it. It's the same with getting into a boxing ring and doing like one of those white collar bouts. It's like it doesn't really matter what happens in there, because the fact that you're getting yourself to a position where you've earned the right to be in that ring or be on that stage is really impressive, because you're doing something that most people wouldn't and can't do, because it takes immense discipline and immense sacrifice. But to get second and first for most overall improvement is, yeah, that's really, really impressive. Good work. Must be chuffed to bits.
That's the leanest I've ever been in my life. And it up until probably maybe week 10 or 11, it was okay, and then it really sort of it hit home how really strict you have to be.
Yeah, I bet you were
Yeah.
just nicking at work. You were probably just nicking people left, right, and centre for the same thing, weren't you? Just grumpy. What
Yeah,
are you doing,
yeah,
part there? Right, you're nicked.
yeah, certainly the hunger kicked in probably the last few weeks. Drinking a lot of water as well, a lot more than I am used to. Is it does take it to another level.
Yeah.
But for that day, the best sort of show condition of my life, I would say, definitely.
And can you remember back then? Because obviously you were inspired by well, you said a number of books, but particularly those two there. What was your split? Like, what were you doing, and how many times a week for how long?
What when I first started?
Actually, sort of leading up to that
Oh,
competition.
leading up to the competition. So I tried something that I've never really done before, which was suggested by Ian, and he sort of dips in and out of it in his own training and for his own sort of competitions he had done in the past, and it was more high intensity, like Mike Mensa stuff.
Right. Okay.
So we literally trained. He trained me once a week, and I trained another 2 times. I've kind of got like a hodgepodge of a home gym, and it was all literally back to back exercises to absolute failure. So, for example, legs. I think it would be something like it changes split pretty much every week, to be honest with you. But a lot of it will be like, say, for example, shoulders and legs, and the legs were brutal, absolutely brutal. I made a few sort of records of when I'd come out of the gym. I sort of recorded myself out, just did a little bit of a commentary as to how that session went, and some days I could barely walk to my car, and it was literally just parked across the road from his. And they were only short sessions, an hour at the most, but we're talking like leg extension to failure, and then straight onto leg press to failure, and then onto another move, and then so only like 3 or 4 moves, and then move on to a different body part then.
God, the
And only like
DOMs
maybe
from
one
that.
set to failure after warm ups.
The DOMs from that must have been unbelievable, weren't they? Like,
Yeah.
How long did that last for?
Normal. Well, I think the first time he trained me, it took me a week to get over
Yeah.
the session, and my own training up until that point is normally being quite more sort of like strength based at lower reps, sort of like 6 reps, 5 or 6 reps, more strength based with a good rest in between the work sets. And this was just something unbelievable, a lot higher reps, and absolutely pushing myself until I couldn't physically move. And at the end of each session, I would literally just lay on his gym floor, and he'd give me 10 minutes to come round and then say, I've got another client coming in, so you're going to have to go.
Brilliant.
So,
Oh my word. Oh, do you know what? I don't think I have that in me anymore. I remember I used to train. I've had a few training partners over the years, but I had a training partner years back, and we did something. I think it was called dramatic transformation principle. My training partner discovered it, and he used to throw I read about this the other day, or I found this. Even it's supposed to be brutal. Should we do it? And I'd be like, yeah, it sounds great. Let's do it. And I remember doing this thing where it was 10 reps to failure, and then you took a little bit of the weight off, and then you did 20 reps to failure, took a bit like 30 reps, and then you would do 50 reps, and then you go back down again.
like a ladder, and then back down
Yeah.
again.
And I mean, just ridiculous, really, when I think about it. But I remember we both went into my house afterwards. So this is a gym I had in the garden. And we both just lay back on the sofa, just going, Christ, what just happened? And within seconds, we both passed out, and we were just fast asleep.
Wow.
And I remember saying to him, when we both sort of came to, I was like, that can't be good for us. We've just both passed out on my sofa. We can't keep doing this. But sounds like you were at that sort of intensity, weren't you?
Yeah, and then a few times after I'd trained on a morning with him, I had the work in the afternoon or in the night, and there's quite a few times where I like hobbled into the gym or into the station to start my shift. And yeah, I mean, my thoughts on high intensity is I take my hat off to anyone who can continue to do it for years and years. I was quite glad when the competition was over and I went back to sort of more my type of training that I've been doing before, which I do enjoy, and because it was just brutal. I
Yeah.
think I can see why you get so good results, but I think um, if you were ever going to do it, it needs to be in blocks of, let's say maybe 12 weeks at the most, and then switch to something else because when you're at your high end of weights and then reps as well, and yeah, it's just absolutely brutal.
Yeah, living an existence like that doesn't. Yeah, you're not selling it to me, Paul.
No, and he did say that some of his clients who he does train just haven't got the sort of constitution for it. It's just. I mean, I used to go on an empty stomach as well because I just.
You were
I just
worried about.
knew that, yeah. We might need a sick bucket if I didn't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, blimey. Okay, well, so before you scare off any potential clients that might be were interested in training with you, what are some of the principles you think that you've learned either from your books or from your own training that you do share with your clients?
Okay, so I think probably one of the biggest principles is you don't need to be in the gym every day, as in training with weights. Um, you know, I most for a lot of my clients, I recommend certainly when they start off, just twice a week, with a good 2 days in between if I can do that. And then outside of the gym, just gradually build the cardio up. And I suppose like my training has evolved and it's still evolving now. And I think as you get a little bit older, like I am, I think you do start to think more about your heart health and your sort of condition, if you like, your fitness as well as having the muscles and the strength. The muscles and the strength are very important, and it's nice to look good. Don't get me wrong, but I think I like to have that fitness to back it up as well, to sort of be as fit as you look, if you like.
Mm.
So yeah, I think one of the main principles for me is that you don't need to train every day. I think a lot of clients think they need to be in the gym every day, or else they're not, they're not going to get the results, and they're going to lose out, or if I miss a day in the gym. And I used to think that. I used to think when I was probably in my 20s and 30s, I used to think if I missed the training day, that was it. It was like my world was ending.
Mm.
And that's not the case. And that what you might actually find is if you actually miss a day, let's say you can't make the gym for whatever reason one day, and you go the next day instead, a little bit out of your schedule, but you might actually find you train better because you've
Mm.
rested a little bit longer, and you just don't know whether your body just needs that little bit of extra rest.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think I'd say that's definitely one of the principles, and to go for strength and the compound moves, all these sort of like isolation exercises, yeah, really good. But what you need to think is they're the icing on the cake, the isolation moves. If you get as big and strong as you can do naturally, you're going to be big all over. Let's say you get maybe a 500-pound deadlift or a 400-pound squat or a 300-pound bench. They're the sort of like the sort of token amounts that the book Brawn, it kind of challenges you to get up to as a really good sort of goal to aim for as a natural trainee. And I think if you can move that sort of weight, you're going to be a big unit. Let's be fair. And then if you want to do some bicep kills or little concentration kills or whatever, then yeah, add them onto it if you've got the time. But when you're, doing some heavy barbell rows or, lifting heavy weights, all your body needs to work. And, so that's another real good, real principle. Like whenever I program for my clients, I don't add loads of little fluffy exercises. We try and stick to the basics. And one of the things I have learned is having really long legs myself is I'm not a natural squatter, but don't be afraid to sort of, let's say, for example, back squats. And I've tweaked my back quite a few times over the years, but with that has come a lot of wisdom. So my own programming now, I'll try and work around that. What other exercises can I do which are really going to work my legs? Well, there's leg press, there's leg extension, there's trap bar deadlifts, which is really, really good for your legs. High reps of that, and just working around these things, but still keeping those principles of the basic exercises, the big compound moves.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that. Yeah, I mean, it's an overused expression in the fitness industry, but it is correct. It's like when you get the compound movements give you the biggest bang for your buck. You've probably heard that expression,
Yeah.
but they really do, don't they? They target so many muscles, and it's rare that you do anything in life that in isolation. If you're picking something up, you're not doing a bicep curl. You're squatting down and you're grabbing hold of something, you're standing up with it. So life is generally a series of compound movements, isn't it? So you'll find that the carryover into day-to-day life is so much better. And you must have had that from your clients. Have you found that clients have said, oh, I'm finding that, when I'm in the garden and I'm doing these different things it's all so much easier now?
I have, yeah. I mean, I've got quite a few more mature clients, shall we say? They're like, I've got a couple who are there's a guy who's a golfer and he's in his 70s, and I've got a lady who's an ex-teacher. She's in her 70s as well, and I started them on more of a body weight type program, but still the compound moves, like body weight rows and incline press ups. And they've both commented how the posture's changed, and do you know what I mean? They're noticing them improvements in their everyday life. And I have them doing, like farmer's walk, reasonable weight, and a prowler as well as a bit of a finisher. And although they dread it, they are seeing the benefit from it. I'm seeing them getting stronger every week. And these are people in the, they're in the 70s. So if they can get, improve the strength, then anything's possible, really, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's never too late, is it? I mean, we definitely want people to start as early as possible, but it's never too late. The earlier, the better, because I always see it like be like paying into a pension, which police, social manager, that's a good one. But when you pay into a pension, the earlier you start, the better, because of the compound interest. And when you get older, naturally you are going to decline in some way. There is going to be, muscle atrophy, and your bones are going to lose density, what have you. But so the more you can build now, the earlier you can build, the more you can build, the less of a decline there's going to be. And unfortunately, so many people now, they spend their whole lives doing nothing. Then they get a decline. They're declining from, there wasn't much there to decline in the first place.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That it's funny you should mention that. I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago while walking my dog. And have you heard of Peter Attia?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of his podcasts, and he pretty much summarized what you've just said. It's
I think he got it from me, actually.
I think he did, actually. I did mention
I think he did, yeah. He gave me a little shout out, did he?
Yeah. He kind of sort of give yourself that long ramp. Do you know what I mean? So and the more, the sort of more muscle mass you've attained before it starts to, you get to a point where obviously it's starting to decline, or you can maybe stabilize it a little bit, but eventually with age it's going to decline. And if you've started from a higher position, then it's a nice gentle slope down. Whereas if you start from a really low position, and you're at a certain age where you're not really going to be able to build that much muscle because your testosterone's low, your growth hormone's low, then you're in a lot of trouble. Like you say, you can make improvements, and I would always say do something. And it never too late to start, like you said. But yeah, 100% agree with you there. The sooner you can do it, really, from certainly from weights as a young teenager. I would 100% start at that age if you can, if you're that sort of age. And but one of the most important things I feel is the consistency of it, and to maintain it then. And which kind of like in relation to the booklet I mentioned, you can't or I don't feel you can maintain it, or you're going to just totally stress yourself out trying to maintain in the gym 5 days a week with weights. It's just, and then if you can't, how's that going to affect you? Whereas if you're sensible from the start, and you train twice, 3 times a week, and then get out of the gym, do other things, other activities that are gonna help you, but not with weights, because it does take a toll on you if you're training really hard. That is gonna see you through a really good life. And when you get into later life, hopefully you don't have problems where you fall and break your hip, and it offers more protection when you get older. So it's almost a bit like future proofing yourself.
Totally. Building armor. The whole sort of musculoskeletal health, I don't think gets as much attention as heart health, does it? Because most people are aware that they should sort of train their heart and lungs. It's important to train the heart and lungs, and it is. It absolutely is. But musculoskeletal health, bone density, ligament strength, tendon strength, it's and muscle size, having muscle mass, and it doesn't have to be Dorian Yates muscle mass. It's just got to be enough so that you've got an elevated metabolism as well. So you're more of a sort of fat burning machine, but also all that muscle. It just makes life easier, doesn't it, to go about your day?
And I think as well, I don't know whether it was on the same podcast, but I think you made reference to if you haven't got that muscle mass, and you do, let's say in later life, you have a problem where you have to go to hospital. Let's say you have a hip replacement, or you can't be active then. If you've not protected yourself from that, or and build up that base, then you are in a lot of trouble. And I think, I can't remember the exact figures, but it was quoting a lot of people that once you have that sort of condition where it sort of stops you from being able to exercise, and if you've not built up that protection with your bone density and things like that, then a lot of people don't last long after that sort of an event, if you like.
Because I think the biggest killer in the UK is heart disease. So statistically, most people will die of that. And then there's dementia and everything else. But there's also falls. If an older person falls over and if they break a hip, a lot of them. I know what you mean. There's some good stats. Well, I should say bad stats. Bad stats around never coming out of hospital again. And that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Or that it's like a knock-on effect, isn't it? So let's say you break your hip, you're in hospital, you then come home, you then can't, you're unable to sort of get out and walk. That affects your metabolism and your heart health. It's compounding, and before you know it, if you're not moving, it's like that old analogy, into move it or lose it sort of thing. And I think that is 100% spot on. That
it is.
If you don't use your body when you're able to, you will lose that ability at some point.
Yeah, and obviously as trainers and what have you, we can talk about this stuff all day long. But I think one of the good things that you're certainly doing to your clients is you're modeling it yourself, and that's really important, isn't it? Anyone that's I suppose whatever industry you're in, if you're a financial advisor but you're skint, no one's going to listen to you. But if you've got a bit of wealth and you're sensible and you're smart and you've invested well, people are more likely to listen to you. And it's the same for trainers, isn't it? If you're practicing what you preach, which you clearly are, that speaks so much louder than words, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
So your clients that you work with, obviously you've got a variety of demographics, I suppose, different ages and what have you. But the thing that sort of could categorize them is they're all training towards sort of health and longevity, then I'm guessing.
Yeah, a big. I've kind of like there's the sort of like divided into two really. Albeit they have got that overreaching goal. There's quite a few who want to lose weight, but that is linked to longevity uh, and the health really.
Mm.
So yeah, but my sort of older range, more mature clients are definitely wanting more fitness and that robustness, if you like.
Yeah, and the great thing about those is as long as your clients show up, that's all happening, isn't it? They're all going to get stronger. Their bones are going to get denser. They're going to get stronger connective tissues. Their heart and lungs are going to get more efficient, more effective. That's going to have a knock-on effect on their mental health as well. So all that stuff is all they've got to do is show up. When it comes to weight loss, as you well know, it's the stuff outside the gym that's the hard bit, isn't it? That's it's always been the hardest aspect for trainers is to get clients to adhere to healthy eating. Have you found that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've had some really good results, and then I've had some mixed results. So yeah, it's a lady who I still train. I only train her once a month now, but I did train her. I was training like a couple of times a week for many weeks. And what I did with her was I I'd set out like a bit of a nutritional goal for her and given her a bit of a sample menu. And she came back to me and said she was really struggling with because she's from Nigeria, so she was struggling with the basically the sort of sample menu that I've given her. So I just sat down with her and said, well, okay, so just tell me what's your staple foods that you would eat. So she went through it and she said, I'd really like um, to be eating these foods. So we sat and went through it, and I said, right, okay, well, there's no reason why you can't. We just need to adjust your portions a little bit, and maybe just adjust how you're cooking things a little bit. So we did, and she was really happy with that. I researched some of the. She gave me some of the staples that she ate, and I kind of researched a menu for her and redid the sort of eating plan for her. And she went away and she's done fantastic. She's lost probably half her body weight. She's
Wow.
100%. She's done so well. I mean, that is a dedication to, to sort of the program that I've given her, and to stick into sort of like the food plan. But I think she didn't find it really hard then once we'd sort of I'd sat down and had that chat with her. And to a stage now where, albeit you don't want to lose your clients, but when they're self-educated and they get to that position where actually she knows what she's doing now, we keep in touch once a month. I'll check in with her once a month just to see if she's got any issues or maybe rejig a program a little bit. But she goes off and does it on her own now, and every time I see her, I'm like, wow, look at you now, look at your face, you've just lost all that weight, and she's over the moon, and she's learning how to swim now, and she didn't want to do that before when she had all the weight and things like that. So yeah, I think that was a real success, and it
Yeah,
kind of
that's
opened
great,
my
man.
eyes up to sort of being a bit more adaptable and just listening to your clients and see what they want. As opposed to just I've got this in my mind what I'm going to tell my client to do and that's it, and then you go do that, and and I'll see you next week sort of thing. And if things aren't working, we need to investigate why,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and
really interesting.
yeah, and then see whether and get them to think about why until and I kind of sort of ask them, well, why do you think you've not lost weight this week? And you don't try and like bully them into you should have lost weight, but just sort of get them to think themselves and be honest. And I try and be really, really friendly and open, and just to encourage them to sort of, it's a safe place. Just tell me, have you had a bad week? Why have you had a bad week? Okay, let's look for the wins. What did you do? What good happened this week? Okay, forget about, let's draw a line in sand with this week, and let next week's a new week. Let's get back on it, and that's how I try and approach it. But it is really hard, and I know it's really hard because I've been through it myself. At one point, I was probably almost 20 stone when I was like in my early 20s after playing rugby and being a bit of a beer monster, and just eating everything in sight. I used to drive my mum and dad wild, drinking 4 pints of milk a day, and I used to have a full packet of fish fingers in a sandwich and things like that. And just like, and I took myself all up to that way. And yeah, I was training a lot every day, and I was playing rugby. But when I got into sort of my mid-20s, like, this has to stop this now. I'm not doing that anymore. I'd stopped playing rugby then, and I wasn't happy with how I looked. So, and I've tried all sorts of different eating styles and programs, vegan, keto, all sorts basically. And obviously it's what you can find that works for you, and it might not work for somebody else, but ultimately, I guess one thing I learned certainly from doing the competition was you don't need as much food as you think you do.
Oh no, you really don't, do you?
No.
No, that's yeah, I mean, that's a whole podcast in itself, isn't it? Talking about that, the whole, what we think is necessary, and this idea as well that I have to eat constantly. Every 2 or 3 hours I must eat something, and it's I don't know where all that comes from, but well, probably the food companies trying to sell food, but but no, that's really interesting. The weight loss side of things is, I think it's always going to be the biggest challenge for PTs because it's so complex, and a lot of it is down to, like, we're now realizing as time goes on that a lot of it is it's to do with people's dopamine levels, and some people just they naturally produce less dopamine, so we reach out for natural sources of that, and whether that's playing on your mobile phone, having a cigarette, or drinking a beer, or eating food, anything to kind of increase your dopamine. So but I think one thing I would like trainers to do more of, but I think the problem is it doesn't sell, is just educating clients in understanding that it is going to be challenging. If you're trying to lose weight, you are going to have to create a calorie deficit. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be counting all your calories, but if we're metabolizing body fat, you're going to be in a calorie deficit. If you're in a calorie deficit, it's not going to feel that great. And there's no way around that, is there?
No. And I think it's one of the strategies I use for my competition was, and I've been doing it probably for well over a year now, I think it's still quite popular, is intermittent fasting, as in sort of like starting at 12, my eating window, and finishing at 8 as much as I could do. And that seemed to help with the hunger, because albeit I had a few hunger pangs when I first started on a morning, I would have like a black coffee and make sure I was hydrated. And I'm always my busiest in the morning anyway, so I didn't really even think about wanting to eat. And then when I broke my fast at around midday, having a fairly large meal, but then tapering it off from there. So my largest meal was always like midday, whether that's scientifically the right way to do it or not, but I always found that worked for me. And just allowing yourself to be hungry, to feel hungry. I don't mean starving as in, absolutely ravenous and, biting everyone's head off sort of thing. I just mean
not full.
not but just allowing yourself to feel like that you feel a little bit hungry. That's okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. But like you said, it's a little bit of comfort short-term pain, long-term gain, and you're just readjusting your metabolism, you're readjusting your body fat percentage, and I think sometimes we just want to reach for what's the easiest thing, and what's the no one wants to feel bad, no one wants to like have that negative feeling of anything, but sometimes you feel when you go through that. I think I kind of found that you're capable of a lot more. And yeah, actually, it's not that bad when you get into it. And when you get the results, and you know, when you're having to buy new jeans because you've lost, your body fat around your waist, and when you're starting to look really good in the mirror again, and do you know what? It's 100% worth it. And we're not talking like sub like 8% body fat or whatever. You're just a normal, healthy body fat range. When you get into that range, you do have more energy. You feel better, you look better. They're just all positives. So I think it's just accepting that actually, yeah, I can do this, and yeah, all right, it might be a little bit difficult, but it's nothing really in the grand scheme of things.
No, I feel like discomfort needs a rebrand, doesn't it? It needs to because with every area of your life, anything that's kind of worth having or worth chasing after comes with discomfort. And I haven't read it, but so many people have told me to read the Comfort Crisis, and it's all about the fact that the reason a lot of people I think are so hypersensitive to what would have been quite trivial to you and I once upon a time, is because generally we live very comfortable lives. But we need to kind of understand that we have to experience this discomfort. And you must have this with your clients, that in the early days, when you first start training them, it looks like their fitness has shot up overnight. But a lot of that is just their subjective tolerance to discomfort is increasing. So you take them out of their comfort zone, and then they realize, oh, I didn't die. I'm okay. And actually, I was buzzing later on that day. So next time they train, they're like, I think I'm quite looking forward to coming out of my comfort zone because I want that buzz. And then they do that enough times, and they see the results in the mirror and the scales and things like that, and the clothes, and they go, wow. And you have this association between discomfort and looking good and feeling good. And we sort of need to have that same. So you get that with your clients with training, but you need to have that also with that feeling of not being full, and not, like you say, it's not deep hunger, but just that little bit where you're like,
Yeah.
I could definitely eat something, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I was talking about this sort of thing with my client yesterday, one of my clients, and I was sort of trying to give her some tips on just to slow down when you have a meal, just a little bit, ever so slightly, just slow down. Maybe just pause your meal, just stop, put your knife and fork down for just a minute or so, and then once you've sort of finished your meal, and if you're thinking, oh, I want to reach for that dessert or whatever, just allow yourself 10 minutes just to sort of that signal to reach your stomach, and I do it myself, and it just does. Actually, when you think, oh, I'm not full, and you give yourself that 10 minutes afterwards, you think, actually, I am full now. I didn't really start. I would have reached for that, that dessert or whatever, that extra, and I didn't really need it because it wasn't part of what I'd planned to eat that day. And I think when people eat instinctively, as in like they don't really think, they just sort of go and grab something. That's when you sort of get into a bit of trouble, really.
Yeah, I agree. Have you watched the Blue Zones documentary on Netflix?
I have, yes. Very, very interesting that. Yeah, yeah.
Because I think every one of those Blue Zones, they stop when they're 80% full, don't they?
Mm.
And that is that feeling where you're not like ravenous, but you are a bit hungry. Yeah, that's but that's not something that we experience in the West, is it? Where we are, it's generally that's you eat until you can't eat anything else. That seems to be the way. I think a lot of that actually comes from, I don't know if you had this, but it's certainly in the 80s, because you had what was going on in Ethiopia, and Band
Yeah,
Aid
like
and everything
famines
else.
and things like that. Yeah,
Yeah, so much
yeah.
famine, and it was really sort of I was going to say rammed down our throat. That sounds really like incompassionate, but but it was just in your face all the time, wasn't it? And you'd hear teachers and parents saying, come on, the starving kids of Africa would love that. So finish what's on your plate. Finish what's on your plate.
I think certainly, yeah. What as I grew up, it was all about you're not leaving this table till you've eaten everything on your plate, or you're not having a dessert until you've eaten everything on your plate, and then that was just how I was brought up, me, my brother, and my sister. So, and it kind of sort of, and you take that forward into adulthood, then, don't you? It's wasteful to leave food on your plate and things like that. And it's a massive sort of culture change to sort of change that thinking, really.
It is, yeah, yeah, and it's almost like a neuroplasticity. You have to rewire your brain, because when I think about it rationally, I'm like, me eating that food that I don't need is not helping anyone in Africa.
Yeah.
It makes no sense at all, does it? For me to well, I'll get obese and type 2 diabetes, and that's not going to help anyone, is it?
No.
So it makes no sense whatsoever. But the default is where it's been driven into you as you've been growing up, is I really shouldn't leave anything. I really shouldn't leave anything. So you do have to challenge that. And I suppose again that's that feeling, the discomfort, isn't it? And going, it feels uncomfortable, but that's okay. And this discomfort I'm feeling right now is good, because this is going to mean results. Getting into that mindset. Okay, Paul. So we talked quite a lot about training. We talked about nutrition. Do you mind if we talk a bit more about sort of your business side of things? So obviously, you're a policeman. That's your full-time job, but you've got 10 clients that you manage out on the side. When you first started out as a PT, what was your biggest challenge, do you think, and how did you overcome that?
Oh God. I think my first initial challenge was obviously getting qualified, which hats off to you, John, for helping me get through that.
That's right.
And sort of like digging into what I needed to do to sort of go out there and be a qualified PT and get the insurance and everything like that. So that was the initial sort of challenge, and I guess it's still ongoing, really. I mean, sort of working out who's my ideal client. If you like, well, what I found was I do actually like working with all different types of clients. So I kind of set out with the idea of who's going to be, like, you hear it a lot, my niche client. And because I'm only quite new to the industry, I've only been sort of PTing for probably about a year and a half now. I do actually like working with all a variety of clients, basically young clients. I've got couples, I've got younger clients, I've got females, males, and I've got more mature clients as well. So I like working with all the different types. I think it's just sort of building on my success, really, and getting out there, really, to encourage more clients. I think the hardest thing, I think, is selling your services, because I've never done a sales job before, and a big part of sort of being a successful PT is sales, really, sales and marketing, and I think that doesn't come really naturally to me, and that's something I'm continuing to work on. I would like to build up more of an online client base, and I'm looking into doing that. It's just balancing all these plates at the moment, with a full-time job and everything like that. Hopefully I get to a position where I can maybe drop some hours and then focus more on maybe on the online things. However, that may change. I do really like working with face-to-face clients, I must admit. And I suppose the challenges with them have been I've had clients getting used to that turnover really sometimes, where some of my clients I've had for literally since I started. Some I've not had very long, and then they've left. I'm getting used to being ghosted now a few times. Like when you get an inquiry and they'll ask for your prices and things like that, and I'll say, I like to sort of have a conversation with them, like an informal chat first before I even look at that. But if they're insistent on wanting prices, that's fine. I'll send them out, and then sometimes you get ghosted, and I'm kind of getting used to that now. But a bit of a shock to start with. It's a bit of rejection, really, and it's
Yeah, I understand that. It sort of feels slightly rude, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It depends how you're brought up. I mean, I wouldn't ghost me personally if I was up. Excuse me. If I was inquiring about a service, I would politely respond. But yeah, it's easy to take offence, isn't it? And take it personally. But yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of things you said there actually I also want to go back to, but the pricing thing, if you get someone straight away inquiring about your price, it means they probably can't afford PT in the first place, and they're just hoping that it's going to be cheap as chips.
Yeah.
And they're probably not the right client anyway, really. I know that you're absolutely right. You do want to speak to them because all they're doing is basing your pricing on their idea of what a personal trainer is and what they can do for them, and they have no clue who you are, what you're about, how you can help. So you do definitely want to get to speak to them. Otherwise, you have to spend so much money on marketing and getting your business out there for people to understand. Like someone like Apple, they don't have to do a discovery call, do they? Because
no.
we all know what Apple is. We all know what their products are. We all know that people like them and they're good and everything else. But we can't do that. We haven't got the budget to spend on doing that. So that's where the call is important, or face to face. But so I think when you enrolled with us, did you do our business course or not? Was that part of it?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've talked about it in there a lot about the sales side of things, and it gets you to step out your comfort zone, doesn't it, and do that side of it. And but you definitely, if you don't have a background of sales, it's always going to be the scariest part, isn't it? I think of running a business. I know it certainly was for me. But something that someone said to me years and years ago was, to try and get rid of the sort of ickiness of sales, is don't think about selling to the customer, think about selling for them. And like with what you do, certainly, like if you were gonna have group all your clients together and give them like an overriding category, they are health conscious individuals, aren't they? They're people that want to live healthier, better lives. And you're not selling you're not selling Rolex watches, are you? You're selling programs that are going to reduce their risk of premature death by 20 to 30%, reduce the risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes by 50%. All these things that are big killers, you're basically going to be giving them a program that means they're not going to be another statistic, which is extremely valuable, isn't it? So I don't know. I think going into it, probably with the idea that they're lucky to have you rather than the other way around, and would probably help with some of that sales process. But yeah, it is a tricky one. Sales always going to be, in an ideal world, you'd rather they were just ringing up going, yeah, I've heard you're great. When can we start? And obviously you're big on your reading, but do you is that your main source of knowledge, do you think? Is it books? Is that what you like to use?
Yeah, I think. I'm quite open to. I've got quite into podcasts. I think it's something you can. You don't even really realize you're learning as you're out walking. I normally drop a podcast on when I'm taking my dog for a walk a couple of times a day. So I quite like that input, and I'm quite open minded. Actually, I'm not closed off to new things, which I think is quite important. But I have got quite a lot of books, and I think probably books are my main sort of go to. And I've got quite a few that I've kind of started, and when I get the time, I really, really want to get back into them. And some are fitness related, some are more business related, some are sort of to do with confidence in your mind and things like that. So yeah, there's quite an array really.
Yeah, I like podcasts. As you say, it's easy to. Well, I love going for a hike and listen to a podcast because then I'm outdoors. I'm getting some, beautiful views, nature, vitamin D. I'm exercising, I'm moving, and I'm learning at the same time. So it ticks a lot of boxes for me, that. But yeah, they're really useful for that. Still love books and that myself as well. Okay, so for anyone that's listening that's sort of thinking about being a trainer, is there any kind of advice that you would give them? Like, even if one piece of advice that you think has worked for you quite well, what would you say?
Patience, I would say. Just be patient with it. I suppose like anyone, you kind of set when I sort of started my journey as a PT, I kind of thought I didn't think I knew everything. I knew I didn't, but there's a lot to learn, and I think I kind of expected more results in a shorter time frame, and then I've had to sort of reframe that, and I've just sort of decided, kind of just say to yourself, I'm just going to keep going at it, keep chipping away at it, and you get these little wins along the way. I remember when I got my first client, that wasn't working at the leisure centre. That was actually an accountant that I kind of knew, and I signed him up. I went to train him at his house, and I don't train him any longer. I don't think he really took to the training, but he was my first client, and that was my first sale, and that was outside of that. I'd not got the lead or anything like that. I'd sort of heard him mention it was interested a while ago, and I kind of sort of just got chatting and saying I'm just starting this personal training off, and I just thought, right, I might as well just ask him. And so I remember that was my first client, and yeah, so just like sell. I remember feeling, really over the moon with that. I was like, I can't
Yeah,
believe I signed up a client. It's unbelievable that.
yeah, that's great, isn't it?
So just celebrate them little wins and just be patient, really. Just
Yeah,
keep
that's good
going.
advice.
And I still feel like I've got loads to learn. I want to learn lots more about work with more sort of people my own age and above, really. I'm constantly evolving my own training as well. Would you believe I've just started a sprinting program?
Mm.
And that's really interesting. I've done a lot of reading on that. Sprinting for the elder, sort of the person over 40, if you like. And yeah, I'm just enjoying the journey, really, and just see where it takes me. I hope, and I suppose long-term goal, transition out of the police to a full-time PT, be it a hybrid version of some online clients, some face-to-face. I think I'll always want face-to-face clients. That's how I feel at the moment. But yeah,
Yeah, it's the most fun bit, isn't it? The what a lot of trainers are kind of evolving onto, well, they have like a bit of a hybrid model. So they'll keep some face to face, so they've got that live interaction with real people. And then they've got the online stuff to reach out to a broader audience, and they've got the flexibility. They don't have to be in a gym environment the whole time. But something else is, rather than doing, for want of a better way of describing it, but like babysitting PT, where you're like counting reps and
yeah,
it's like doing that twice, 3 times a week or whatever. It's probably much like you do with your monthly ones, where they come along, you give them the program, you take them through the program, you do some assessments, whatever. They go away, and then they follow the program that you've written for them. They come back for the check-ins. I think that's quite a nice way of doing things because they're part of your community, and they've got access to the program. They can check in with you, but you're not having to be there all the time counting reps because there is a slight sort of monotony to that, isn't there? Eventually, you've been training the same client for a long time, and obviously it means that you can charge a bit more for that hour because it's the initial assessment. you know, there might be a halfway one, there might be one at the end. So then you start filling up your week doing that rather than just sort of, and people can afford that more rather than paying you to see you 3 times a week. And doing small group as well. Small group PT is also quite popular now. But there's so many ways you can do it. That's one of the exciting things of it is, you know, there's something for everyone really. Okay, and if people want to find you, Paul, where's the best place to look you up?
They can find me on Facebook. I think I'm just under Paul Comer. That's Comer is my surname. Or on Instagram, Coach Paul Comer.
Okay, I'll grab the links and I'll stick them in. We've got like show notes so people can click on the link and go into it, so I can go for that way. So before we sort of round things up, then, is there anything else you wanted to share or say? If you feel like it's not been covered at all?
No. I think it's been really good to catch up with you, John.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. We share very, very similar kind of training philosophies, I think, by the sounds of it. I mean, that sort of, you mentioned about the 3 times a week thing. That's exactly what I do. I have my 3 core programs. And when I say core, I don't mean core. I mean as in like my compound movements that I will do 3 times a week. And sometimes if I feel like doing anything more on top of that, I will do some specialized like isolation stuff. But generally it's the 3, and I do a minimum of 3 runs, and I walk a lot in between that. So that is something that I feel like I can sustain for the rest of my life. And the problem with, like, exactly what you said, if it's, you know, I'm going to train 5 times a week, I'm in the gym 5 times a week. When I think about it, I think, can I do that for the rest of my life? I'm not sure I can. So I'd rather just stick to something I know is sustainable for me, and that works. So very, very similar to similar beliefs, I think, you and I. Right. Well, like I say, great chatting to you, Paul, and we'll have a little chat off camera when we end this. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on the show, and yeah, wish you all the best, mate.
Yes, likewise. Same for you, John. Thank you.
Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, something you can do for me is subscribe to my show. And if you know anyone else that might be interested in this content, then please share it with them too. You can also head over to our socials and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. But if you're ready to take that next step, visit our website, www.stormfitnessacademy.co.uk, fill out a contact form, that'll come straight to me. I will contact you shortly afterwards, and I look forward to speaking to you then.